I've been trying to do that, and it just
Can't
keeps
do it.
sliding, driving me
It's
crazy.
just coming up. Mine didn't go up. Mine didn't go a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock, and we welcome you here to the American Fork City Council regular session on this February 26, 2019. Appreciate you being here. Is there any scouts in the room today? Doesn't look like it. So. Okay, well, we would, if you don't have an agenda and would like one, there's some on the middle of in the room on the desk, and we will follow the agenda as outlined. It has been posted on the state website in various places throughout the city, and we will follow it as outlined. We'll first begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead, then we'll have a prayer by Councilmember Shelton, and then I will conduct the roll call. If you'd all please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity we have to be gathered together as friends and citizens and as a community to be able to find ways in which we can be able to look for solutions and be able to provide excellent service to those around us. Father, we are grateful for the many freedoms in which we enjoy, for the men and women who continue to provide safety and security and protect our freedoms. We ask Thee, Father, that we may be mindful of those freedoms and the sacrifices that are made, that we may be able to remember our civic duties and be able to live up to those. We pray that we'll have civility tonight and be able to be blessed with abundance of Thy Spirit to help us to discuss and collaborate and look for the right ways to be able to provide the best service we can and to fulfill our responsibilities entrusted to us. And these things we ask and pray for in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that prayer. Now I'll conduct the roll call. Councilmember Christiansen.
Here.
Councilmember Shelton.
Here.
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Tater.
Here.
Okay, we have a full quorum tonight and can conduct the business of the city. I'm going to just change a little bit on the agenda. I think we're waiting on our person for number 2. We're going to give her a few minutes. So, Vendelin, if we could move on to number 3, if you could find that item. We're going to start with this. You want to start that over, Vendelin?
I saw a lot of girls. Valentine's Day is a big day for students in high school, and a sophomore here at American Fork High School made sure that every girl in the school had a reason to smile today.
Can I have all girls stand up really quick?
Ryan Bazell is visiting all of the classrooms of his school today, presenting every girl in the school with a long-stemmed carnation.
I saw a lot of girls upset and sad because they didn't get anything on Valentine's Day, so I was like, I can do this for them, so I just saved up money and bought flowers for them.
1,200 flowers. He earned all of the money himself working his summer job. He's not saying how much he spent, but certainly all of the flowers add up to several $100s.
And then do you want to go that way?
With help from his parents and a few friends, the flowers are delivered throughout the school, including a small note attached to each one.
The tags we put on them this year say there's something in you that the world needs.
This isn't the first time Ryan started giving away flowers to girls in his school on Valentine's Day when he was in 8th grade.
For me, it's really fun because I just like seeing people happy when I make people happy. And I'm glad I can get help with my friends to get it done.
Ryan still has a couple more years here at the high school, and he's hoping that he can continue on this tradition until he graduates. Sam Penrod, Live in Boston.
All right, I'm going to ask Ryan to come forward if he might. Try not to embarrass you there, Ryan. But it's embarrassing enough just being up here, right? So, we are presenting Ryan with the Hero Award in American Fork City. It's a way to recognize people who demonstrate outstanding determination, selfless service, and heroic efforts. These qualities certainly exemplify Ryan Bazell. And while Ryan is not a resident of American Fork, his actions have impacted many in our community for good. Since 8th grade, Ryan has been saving up every year to buy flowers on Valentine's Day for every girl in his school. This year, Ryan delivered a long stem carnation to every girl at American Fork High School, about 1,200 total, with the note, "There is something in you that this world needs." And I want to just, if I could, go back to what he wrote, what were on notes in the previous 2 years while he was in junior high. One note in 2017 said, "You are amazing, beautiful, remarkable, brilliant, and loved." In 2018, when he was a 9th grader, the note read, "Always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and twice as beautiful as you could ever imagine." Pretty incredible words. This act of service proves that there is something in Ryan Bazell that we all need: a caring and selfless heart. As mayor, I am charged with the policy and long-term vision of the city. Together with the staff and the city council, we work to put books on the shelves of the library, fill potholes, cut park grass, patrol the streets, and otherwise provide basic services. But that's not all that makes up a town. The people are what makes up a town. Ryan is an example of the type of courageous, caring, essential to create a community that people want to be part of. For this reason, we want to honor Ryan tonight and his example by giving him the Hero Award and declaring this day, February 26, 2019, Ryan Bazell Day in American Fork City. And I want to give Ryan as well a certificate. Now, I prepped Ryan a little bit on this, and I just wanted to maybe to give us a little bit of an explanation as to what started this whole process. You okay with that? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the first year I did it in 8th grade. I had an English teacher. His name was Mr. Strzok, and we spent maybe 2 years out of the whole year learning actual English lessons. But one of the core things of his class was he taught us to be good people, and one of the main lessons that he taught us was about the marigold and the walnut tree. And walnut trees are super toxic, so like farmers decide not to plant around there, and marigolds help other plants to flourish. So I decided that I wanted to be a marigold, and I wanted to help other people feel good and to help other people be better. And that's why I started doing this, because I noticed that a lot of girls were lonely and sad and like weren't getting anything on Valentine's Day, and it was pretty upsetting. So I just wanted to get something for them, and that's what got me started with it.
Will you shake the hand of the camera? You know, sometimes we only hear the bad in the world, but boy, there's so much more that's good. Item number 2 on the agenda that I want to move to now is the American Fork Chamber of Commerce Hero Award. And I'm going to have Crystal Pine. Community Service Award, excuse me. I'm reading my notes here. Crystal, could I have you come forward? And you know what? I think you have to bring your better half. We'll see who comes up. Let me tell you a little bit what Crystal's done. Crystal has been a volunteer victims advocate with the American Fork Police Department for 4 years. Crystal has donated countless hours working with and assisting victims of crime, covering court appearances and working with city prosecutors. Crystal has taken a lead role in conducting the monthly safe school meetings with school district staff and Wasatch Mental Health in an effort to be proactively stop the cycle of violence and abuse in the lives of community members. Crystal has been taken initiative as well, expanding services to victims of fraud and identity theft. This past year alone, Crystal has provided assistance to almost 100 crime victims. Crystal brings a great attitude and dedicated care to our victim assistance program, and we are very, very lucky to have her. Crystal's efforts to serve the community has helped countless victims of crime in American Fork and have helped lessen the impact of criminal victimization for countless members of our community. Crystal recently completed the State of Utah's Victim Assistance Academy, which will help raise the level of service that the police department can provide to those in need. Crystal's exemplary action qualifies her for this recognition today. Crystal's selfless service shows how one individual can make an impact for good in a community and lighten the load of someone in need. On behalf of American Fork City, the American Fork Police Department, and the Chamber of Commerce, we would like to present Crystal Pine this year's, Josh, tell me what the award is, because it says the same thing again. We would like to present to Crystal this year's Chamber of Community Service Award. Now, I got to tell you, this was to be handed out to Crystal at a chamber meeting, but she was out of town, and I can just hope that she was out playing. So, anyway.
No, I was sitting in meetings with him all day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, now we'll move on to item number 4, which is the 20-minute public comment period. Anybody that would like to address the mayor, the council, or senior staff at this time for any purpose, if you'd come forward right now, we would love to hear from you. We would ask you to state your name and the microphone so we can have that on public record. If there's an item in the agenda that you would like to speak at, please just raise your hand, and we'd be happy to let you speak there as well. Seeing no public comment period, we will now move on to the city administrator's report.
Mayor and Council, I just have one item to ask if you would hold on your calendars and for the community. On Monday, March 18th, there will be a Utah Preparedness Expo sponsored by the City of Cedar Hills, which American Fork City Fire Department and Police Department will also be participating, and that it will be held from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Cedar Hills Community Recreation Center. Again, that's on Monday, March 18th. So we look forward to participating with that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Now move on to our council reports, and I'll just kind of mix it up here a little bit, and I'm going to start at my left with Councilman Taylor.
I have nothing to report, Mayor, but I sure like starting the council meeting with those kind of awards right off the bat. Kind of sets a much nicer tone, I think.
I agree. All right, thank you. Councilmember Carroll?
Yeah, I was thinking how inspiring it was to hear about these people who, out of their own volition, took action. They weren't compelled by any reason other than their own will. I hope there's more people like that out there. The only thing that I have to report on today is that I was able to go to the public open house for the Murdoch Connector, and that was really interesting. I took a couple of pictures from the maps that they had out if you wanted to see those at all. And I think they're going to be having a website up that will have updates if you wanted to take a look at that. It seemed like the public response was pretty good. It didn't seem really contentious, and they had a lot of UDOT people there explaining every detail of the road, and it looked pretty well planned out. So if you have any details, if you have any questions about any details, we can talk about that. That's obviously not my assignment, but I thought it was pertinent to things that we talked about.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Barnes.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Shelton?
Thanks, Mayor. Had a chance to attend the operations board meeting for the North Point Solid Waste. I learned one interesting item. Every time I go, I learn something new about trash and garbage that I don't know if I'll ever use again in my life, but it's good to find out. One question I've always got from residents is, when are we going to offer green waste curbside? And I know that Alpine does it, and I believe Orem does it. Does Lehigh do it as well? I can't remember.
Provo.
So it was interesting talking to that, and we were analyzing a little bit about that. And because Orem and a few others in our district do curbside green waste, it was interesting to note that green waste from the curbside ends up in the landfill anyway. And the reason for it is because it becomes dirty green waste. Again, same kind of thing with the contamination issues that you're going to have. So a lot of people end up putting things in there, and by the time it makes it into a truck and sits in a truck all day in the middle of summer, it ends up having quite the stench and smell to it. And so the only green waste that is used for composting is what they would consider to be clean, that's coming in on trailers, and they have someone that's there watching to make sure that it's sifted through. That's then sent out to a third party who ships it off, composts it, and if they want to, they'll ship it back where we can then sell it to the public so much if we want. If not, it goes various contracts, and they're even looking at shipping it so far as California. I think that's very interesting, and the reason why we're looking at that is because, believe David, it's in 2020 when Timpanogos will no longer accept any green waste, and we're going to see a need to be able to have somewhere to get rid of that green waste. And so right now that operations board is looking at ways to add that. If I don't know if you have numbers, David, or not, on how many people pass on their green waste there at Timpanogos, but we anticipate that would add a significant load to the already busy Saturdays that's backing up there at the facility. So we are looking at some capital improvements to be able to facilitate better customer service and handle that item. One thing we may want to look at doing is better advocating our dump passes, making sure everyone's utilizing those, and they're just not stockpiling and becomes a vacant lot, and everyone puts their green waste on some vacant lot and becomes an issue. So just a few things to look at there over the next year as we kind of get going. The other thing that I want to report on is that I really appreciated Stacy and David, and I got to meet with a developer this last week and just kind of pick their brain about Main Street and opportunity zones, and I thought it was a very productive meeting. So I wanted to thank them both for doing that. I think there were a lot of great ideas that just came from lots of people talking, and hopefully that'll continue. We can formulate a good process there. Also had the chance to attend the beautification committee. They have approved or recommended the change that we've talked about in all the committees as far as attendance and the removal from the appointed position if need be. And so I'm guessing, Tim, is that the next best thing is to work with your office into adopting or writing the legal leads to change the bylaws to reflect that for that committee and then bring it back here to this body, I would assume?
Beautification committee.
What I recommend is to have the committee themselves generate bylaws. If you need a template, I could provide that, but I think that they have more buy-in when they're generating the procedures that they're following.
Okay. So to do just an amendment to add this one thing into it, would it be good to just give you, I can do a rough guess at it. Is that kind of the best
Are
way
you
to
saying
go
they
about
already
it?
have bylaws?
I believe they do.
And they just
right,
wanted to amend it?
establish Tree City USA, and we just wanted to add to it a few
Sure.
provisions.
I think, don't
If-
you
if
have
you
a
send
bylaw
me-
that in the dispatch? Something to that nature if they don't attend? Where have we passed that? And I'm sure it's just that one or two lines.
So we had the park committee, and it was two
That's right.
sections out of the park committee
That's
we
right.
talked about, and then we adopted that in the cemetery, and we said, hey, this is something we really should have in all the committees, and so we kind of all agreed to take it back to our committees, and so just trying to fulfill that obligation coming back.
If you'd like me to take point on it, what you could do is just email me the language that
Okay.
you want inserted, and then I can find what they currently have and plug it in, and we can bring it.
Perfect. That'd be great. And then after attending the beautification committee, I noticed there was a meeting up here that was taking place, and so I came up and was able to attend planning commission. It was great to be able to be there. John runs a great meeting, and it was good to see how that was going. One thing that I noticed of interest is in the items of discussion, they talked about wanting additional training to better understand what they legally can require and things of that nature. And John, jump in if I'm misrepresenting anything here, but I thought, as we're looking at budgets this year, I'd love to make sure that we added maybe some kind of training there just to help people come to that idea of what their job or responsibility was. I thought there was some good discussion there, but I don't know if that'd be helpful for the committee.
The commission wants some kind of training, and I'd like to see some kind of language about participation on the planning commission also, with 50% attendance, 20% attendance, whatever it may be. I think not only the committees, but the planning commission needs that same kind of language in our bylaws.
Okay. So just a couple thoughts I had as I attended, and they do a great job. I really appreciate the heavy lift that they have there, and so I think it would just be helpful for them to get the training. And I think as far as the bylaw changes, maybe, is that something administration would kind of take care of at that point? Okay. And then last but not least, I got called out on social media the other day to enter into a friendly challenge, I guess is the right legal term to use. Not a bet, but a challenge on a certain high school basketball game, and took up Pleasant Grove on that and took my daughter to the game, and it was a great game on the men's varsity level, and AF came up short by 3 points, darn it. But so I was supposed to be wearing a jersey tonight, so if they come later, Mayor, I don't know if they're going to come make good on it or not, but we did say that we'll probably see each other in state, and maybe there'll be another friendly challenge. But I think it does a lot of good to see two communities coming together. As I got to network with the council over there in PG afterwards, I think it's always good to have good relationships with those that we border, to be able to have a relationship to call on when we have a need. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Christiansen.
I met a couple of months ago with someone who was interested in sustainability. So we're doing an exploratory thing to determine what interest there is in communities across the county to have sustainability committees or individuals or whatever level we want to do. And we're going to be looking at that at the end of March. Also, the Wasatch Show Band and Wasatch Winds put on a great performance last night. I don't know if, were you there too? I was. Okay. They always do a good job. Anyway, but it was really good, and appreciate all the work that they do.
Thank you. Well, for the mayor's report, I was on the other side of the city at the symphony that last night.
Yeah, that was
In fact, I heard you might be there, and I was looking for you, Barbara. But I figured you were probably at the high school. But last night at the symphony, I was able to just introduce them. They have been functioning for 25 years. Our symphony, one of the few in the state of Utah that can call American Fork can call a symphony home, and it was well attended, and it was a great evening. A couple other things. It was my opportunity to meet with a few kids at Forbes Elementary School, and I was just incredibly encouraged by the next generation of kids. These were third grade students that had the opportunity to report on something that was interesting to them using technology and other means. And I don't think at third grade any one of us were using PowerPoints, computers, pushing buttons, leading discussions, answering questions, and they were very, very amazing. So it was a lot of fun for me to be there. And then later on that evening, it was my turn, and we all take turns doing it with Meet the Candidate night, and had some very, very insightful questions asked to me. Those are always interesting. You never know what you're going to get, as you know, but we had a lot of fun. And so that is the mayor's report. We will now move on to the common consent agenda, consisting of the 2 items that are before you right now. If you're okay with it, I would entertain a motion on the common consent agenda.
I would move to approve the common consent agenda.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay. I notice we have some scouts with us tonight now. I just would ask as you leave the room, if you might just sign in the middle of the room there on that paper. Sign your name so that we know you're here. Your names will be mentioned in the minutes of the meeting. So anyway, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. As we move on to the action items, I just wanted to, if I could just make a comment that the information that we had that we're going to be discussing tonight has been on the council packets and has been on the city website since about Friday of last week. Sometimes I think that people might think we just act real quickly and in haste, but the fact of the matter is that the council's had a lot to read over the weekend and the first of the week. So we try to understand things, ask questions of staff if need be, and come very prepared. So we'll now move on to action item number 1, ratification of city payments from February 5th, 2019 to February 19, 2019, and approval of purchase requests over $25,000. Any questions for staff? An item.
Mayor, I'll move to ratification of city payments as presented.
Have a motion by Councilmember Shelton.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a review and action on an agreement for the Ovard annexation consisting of 1.169 acres at approximately 340 North County Boulevard.
Mayor, I'd move approval. I'd move to approve the agreement for the Ovard annexation consisting of 1.169 acres at approximately 340 North County Boulevard. And with that, I'd also like to mention, I guess I'm going to wait for the second, but I continually find appreciation for the Planning Commission notes, going through and talking about the different things. And I know I can find key elements that I need to pay attention to in there, so I really appreciate that. That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Jim.
Mayor, I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor and a second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 3, review and action on an agreement for the Huggard American Fork City annexation consisting of 12.115 acres at approximately 300 South, 1000 West. And that is Huggard, I know it.
Mayor, I had a chance to review it and didn't have any questions, so I'll make a motion to approve the agreement for the Hogarth American Fork City annexation consisting of 12.115 acres, approximately 300 south and 1000 west.
Second.
We
Good
have
eye,
a-
Earl Barbara.
We have a
Got it.
motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 4 is a review and action on agreement for the American Fork Boat Harbor annexation consisting of 66.05 acres at approximately 1700 south and 100 west. The applicant is here if you have any questions, or if he would want to make any comment at all.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the agreement for the American Fork Boat Harbor annexation consisting of 66.05 acres at approximately 1700 south, 100 west.
Have a motion by Councilmember Taylor
Second.
and seconded by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion?
I just think it's great that if it's called American Fork Boat Harbor, it's now actually part of American Fork. And I think that whole area has been discussed before. I think it'll be good for the community, and look for some good things out there as you develop that and do some of the other things that need to be done out there.
Thank you, Councilman. We feel the same way about it. It's been a privilege to work with the city, with the planning staff, with the engineers. And I'm glad that's your perspective on it. That's how we tried to approach it. Mayor Frost has been very helpful to you early on in this discussion, and it's, I think you nailed it. I need to repeat that.
Things are moving ahead the
Things are
way
an
you
asset
want them
to
to.
the city,
Good.
I think,
Yeah,
for a
they
long
should.
time.
I know this has been talked about for a long time, and I appreciate the movement. I just think it's interesting as part of that, the individuals listed in the agreement. So American Fork City is entering into an agreement with American Fork City. So
Yeah.
it's good. We're on the same side.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, item 5A is a review and action on the final plat of Proctor Estate subdivision consisting of 2 lots located at 200 South, 460 East in the R4-7500 residential zone. Any questions for staff, or if the applicant is here?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the final plat of the Proctor Estates subdivision consisting of 2 lots located at 200 South, 460 East, and to authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with the instructions to the city recorder to hold recording of the plat subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the February 6th, 2019 Planning Commission minutes.
Thanks for that motion, Councilmember Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion?
Personal privilege, if I may. I want to talk to those boys back there because most of you are already going to sleep. These are the most boring meetings you think you've ever attended, and I understand that. But this stuff is what makes American Fork American Fork. There are certain laws and regulations that have to be adhered to so that it makes for a good community. And one of those is how you get incorporated and become part of the city. You know what the benefit of being part of the city is? You get to pay city taxes. Okay? And behind you, the police chief is back there, and he and his officers are going to watch out for those people who are now part of the city, where before we didn't really care about them too much, even though they were kind of part in the city. But even though this looks like just little stuff, it really is important to the people that own that land, the people that live around them, and to the long-term ideal functioning of a community that some of these things are done. So when you go back and report to your counselors that you attended this meeting, you can't say, oh, they just talked about a bunch of crap. This is important stuff, and you need to understand a little bit of what we're talking about. And I see that you're all making notes while I talk, so thank you.
That might be the very portion you'll have to report back to your merit badge counselor, so.
And we can get you Councilman Barnes' phone number in case you have any question on any of this information.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I will call for a vote. Councilmember Chris Jansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
All right, item number 5B is a review and action on an ordinance adopting the final plat and site plan of Penny Lane Townhomes Phase 3 amended, located at 200 South, 460 East in the R4-7500 residential zone.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat and ordinance adopting the site plan of Penny Lane Townhomes Phase 3 amended, located at 200 South, 460 East in the R4-7500 residential zone. And to authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions to the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat and publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the February 6, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second.
You have a motion by Councilmember Carroll and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion?
Not necessarily on the motion, but I'd just like a little matter of clarification. I noticed that the total number of units there was like 32 or something, but they were numbered up to 58 or something. Can you explain that, John or Adam? I don't remember the numbers exactly, but is that including the other section of Penny Lane?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's 32 total. The numbering is a little odd, but yeah, there's 32 total. So I think it's however they chose to begin those numbers. They started at like number 30 or 28 or something. So.
They started with 28.
Yes.
I didn't know that 460 East was
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Chris Jansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Met with the project manager on this, and the purpose that they are in this project is because they lie within the opportunity zone. They have done their homework, and they're going to capitalize on that because of the location. So, yeah, they've had their eye on this for several months, and so they're ready to roll. Okay, item number 5C is a review and action on an ordinance approving a commercial site plan for the River Birch Medical Office located at 24 North, 1100 East in the PO-1 Professional Office Zone.
Mayor, I motion to adopt the ordinance approving a commercial site plan for the River Birch Medical Office located at 24 North, 1100 East with the instructions to the city recorder to withhold publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the February 6, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. I believe that is the last parcel. There's one residential parcel left after that. Completely locked that block out.
I think the notes said most of the other stuff's been done since like 1998. I was really surprised to see
Yeah,
that.
this is one parcel that's right in the middle of that
Just
asphalt.
been sitting there, yeah.
Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Okay.
I didn't remember that.
All right, have a second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Chris Jansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 5D, review and action on the final plat of the Castel von Schmuel subdivision consisting of 2 lots located at 195 West, 700 North in the R1 9,000 residential zone. I sure hope I got that last name right.
Close enough.
What's the correct way?
I'm not sure either. I'm not Mr. Schmuel, but I think that's Schmuel's.
Okay. We talked about it, Keith Staff. Say, what is it? How do you say it? Okay, it's Shmuel. Okay.
Well, I move to approve the final plat, I can't even say plat, let alone the name, of Castel von Schmuel subdivision consisting of 2 lots located at 195 West, 700 North, and to authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions to the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat, subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the February 6th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Christiansen, second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion?
All right. Oh, go ahead.
Wanted to have appreciation for the Planning Commission again, actually, because the questions that I had were brought up in the notes of the Planning Commission, and that was so nice to have them answered just easily that way.
When I was a little kid, I used to run different things up to that home for my dad because that was the home of Neil Savage, who was the mayor of American Fork at the time. He built that home, and so yeah.
I'm glad to see the frontage turned so that
Yeah.
it will be easier access, safer.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
All right, item number 6 is a review and action on a reimbursement agreement with Wasatch Residential Group for widening of roadway along 600 East. Any?
I do have a question, Mayor, and this applies for all of the reimbursement agreements. I just kind of wanted to know how they fit into our budgeting process, because obviously the timing of it is dictated. Do I not understand it? Scott gave the, she doesn't know what she's talking about look.
He's looking at, should I have Kyle come
Scott,
up?
you shouldn't give that kind of look.
It was the look at, oh, it's money, Kyle, is this you or me? And he says, you start, I'll come up if I need to.
So I'm just kind of
So-
wondering, you know, because the timing is set by the developer based on when they're able to develop, and then we have these reimbursement agreements in place, and we have so many and right here. So I'm kind of wondering how that works.
Well, so when, the way it works with these is, yes, when the work is complete, they apply for the reimbursement actually, and we go through, we inspect it, make sure it meets it, and then start the check request process. Basically, a lot of these come from impact fees, the impact fee fund, assuming they're on the IFFP, which generally they are or should be. Occasionally, and Kyle can lasso me, but some of those funds may dip negative occasionally on some of these things. But
So we let them come in as they come in. We don't try to regulate them.
correct. It's pretty much development driven. Whenever a developer comes in and they're wanting to build a certain piece of infrastructure, but if it's in our master plan that we want to upsize it for whatever reason, generally if it's on the master plan, that's pretty much a standard. They want a reimbursement agreement, and we recommend approval. It's kind of been the practice, fits with code, and it's, again, developer driven.
I think it's very beneficial to the city because we get to tag on to work that's already being done there. So the equipment's already there. We don't have mobilization costs. And for lack of a better term, we're not tearing up a road to go back and put in or upsize infrastructure and things of that nature. So I think it's very beneficial to the city. I think it's great that we ought to continue to look for items when that matches to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely. I love reimbursement agreements because I think they are more efficient. I just wonder if you have a lot of development at one time, if it then overburdens something that you haven't perhaps budgeted for. And that was the only thing I was questioning, but I don't have a problem with it. I was just wondering about the logistics of it.
Is he coming? Nope, he's staying sitting, so. Oh, here he comes. Okay, I'll sit down.
My question, kind of along the same line, do they sometimes just get a credit against the impact fees that they have to pay? If there are any.
That practice may have been done in the past, but we try to avoid that just because there's so many opportunities for that record to be lost or mixed up or some confusion on that. So it's better to actually reimburse them out of our impact fee fund. Yeah.
Just a little bit more information. Scott was correct in everything he was saying. What we typically do in finance is, once we know these are coming through, we do issue a purchase order to encumber those funds, so at least we know what they're coming. But a lot of times, as Scott said, they're development driven, so we don't have a huge lead time. Sometimes, as Scott had mentioned, those funds can go negative, and as long as they're within the facility plan that's approved, we will eventually recover those funds because those projects are built into the plan. And so the fund might dip negative, but there's other funds to cover that cash shortage until it's made up.
Do we have a motion yet?
You know what? If you haven't noticed, sometimes at least I don't think we do.
Okay, well then I move to approve the reimbursement agreement for Wasatch Residential Group.
Okay, we
And
have
I'll
a motion by Councilmember Carroll and a second
I'll
by
second.
Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Tater.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 7 is review and action on a reimbursement agreement with Woodside Homes of Utah, LLC, for improvements along 100 West in the Stone Creek Plat A subdivision. Something like unto it.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the reimbursement agreement for Woodside Homes of Utah LLC.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Taylor.
Second.
And then have a second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 8, review and action on a cooperative agreement with the Utah Department of Transportation for conduit installation in American Fork Canyon. This is something that George has been working very hard at, very diligently. If there's any questions,
Mayor, I'll go ahead and I will make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement with Utah Department of Transportation. Got a chance to drive up there this last weekend as we stayed the night in sub-zero temperatures with the scouts. It was a lot of fun, but it was good to kind of talk to them a little bit on the drive up about where the water supply comes from and the improvements that are going to be pretty significant up that canyon. This fiber optic line, I believe, will allow for more emergency communication up that canyon, which is great in case that's ever needed. So I think it's a good idea.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Tater. Any discussion on the motion?
I just wanted to commend city staff on this contract. I think it's a really good one, and it's a benefit for both UDOT and the city, and it's really great when we can get there. I did notice a very slight mistake, I would assume, on page 3 of the contract. It says 30 days and there's a number 14. Doesn't change the motion, but when you go back and do it, you might want to fix that. Yeah.
In some circles, 30 actually means 14 in some tribes in the Amazon.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Tater.
Aye.
Scott, while we have you, I'm of the understanding that they're going to start breaking ground here is within the next 2 days. Is that right?
It's definitely in the next couple days. They're already mobilizing, and of course we issued the notice to proceed maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I believe it was. So they're moving.
Okay. Can you give us kind of an idea of what you think is the timeline between start to finish?
I have it on my paperback at the back, but the idea is to make sure that we're done by May. That was several dones, one for each of how important it is that we be done by May. We really anticipate it'll be sooner than that. That's the latest that it could be.
Okay. Great.
Be a new canyon up there with the cave area being all improved and these improvements going in, so.
Kind of bittersweet,
It is.
roadway. I'm glad they're getting fiber optics up there. Certainly use the water line, the traffic.
When are they starting construction? I mean, they've been doing
So
construction.
officially, it started 3 weeks ago when we issued the notice to proceed. That's when their clock starts ticking. They have a certain number of contractual days by which they must finish. And that started, again, officially, I think it's 3 weeks ago, thereabouts, when we issued the notice to proceed. But there's a while whether it takes to mobilize, get the pipe ordered. This is pipe that is big enough, it's not really sitting on a shelf usually, so they start manufacturing it and put in the order and do all those things and get it here. So there will be a lot of those kinds of work, preliminary work, but really as far as we're concerned, construction's already started.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 9 is review and action on a reimbursement agreement with Willow Glen for 700 West improvements.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the reimbursement agreement for Willow Glen 700 West.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Shelton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor. Item number 10 is a review.
It would be technically correct that reimbursement agreement is capitalized as it is in the previous items. It's not capitalized and it's an official document. But that's just to the side, but I would encourage you to make that as part of your motion.
It's capitalized on the motion, but I think in your agenda it's not capitalized, so on the official motion it is capitalized.
It's just here that it was left off.
Right.
Good
It was
catch.
actually a test. Great job.
Hey,
Yeah.
we've got a third one.
I wanted to
among
see
us
if
now.
anyone was paying attention, so that's awesome. Thank you, Bill, honestly.
Okay, item number 10 is review and action of connectors agreement, AKI Pioneer agreement with Willow Glen for 700 West. Any questions for our city engineer on this one?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the connectors agreement for Willow Glen, 700 West.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Taylor and a second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 11, review and action on a water banking agreement for Patterson Construction Incorporated. Again, Scott's well-versed in what this is, and
Make a motion to authorize the city to sign a water banking agreement for water rights with Patterson Construction, Inc.
Okay.
Just a quick question. I'm assuming we're going to see more and more of these start coming up.
Could very well be, Councilman. It's the kind of thing as developments coming in, they're still bringing in a lot of water, and a lot of it is agricultural land that's being converted to development. So I would anticipate that as well.
That's good. Thank you.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Just a quick comment. That seems like a lot of water, that 141.818 acre feet. That's a pretty good amount of water, it seems to me. We're usually looking at pretty small numbers, so.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, item number 12 is a review and action on a master's service agreement with Sumac International. Questions for staff?
So,
Not-
Mayor, I've read through this. I'm prepared to make a motion, but I would like to go to, if we can, move to the service order number 1, and I would just suggest one change. If everyone is agreeing with that, then I would make a motion. So all the way to the end, it's the service agreement on the Service 1 agreement on the very back page. I think this warrants, keep going, please. Vendolin, a little bit more, one more, right there. So I would, I think this would warrant some more discussion on the consultant services. So I would be willing to make the motion if we would scratch B entirely from this service order number 1.
Okay.
That's, we can go ahead and have discussion, but that's one that I would suggest.
Everything else stays the same.
Yes. Pardon me. I'll just go and then we can have discussion. I move to approve the master services agreement with Sumac International with the exception, or noting the change on the service order number 1 to strike item B in its entirety from the service order.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor and a second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a quick question, Clark. Would you be willing to add to the motion to place a cap of a monetary sum on that at all?
On just what's there for design 9 or
For the total.
For the total, so the master service agreement being approved contingent upon, 100,000 being allocated or something of that nature.
yeah, that would find you have a number in mind.
I was thinking 100,000 sounds great, but, and obviously
And
if
that would
there,
include the legal elements that are towards the end of
right,
that as
so
well.
everything that goes towards this contract, the total sum of money to be accounted for and allocated that we're willing to spend would be up to 100,000, and anything over and beyond that just needs to come back to the council for further discussion and approval at that point.
So yes, I would be willing to add that, amend my motion.
So are you including the travel costs with that also?
I think
And-
those going through and reading
That's
that is
under
those.
C.
Under C,
Yeah, so
the,
they're
yeah.
in addition to 48.
so I just did some quick math and added, math's important, you guys pay attention. There are two numbers up here, $35,000 and $48,750. If I did that correctly, that's $83,750. Roughly 17,000 is left over.
That would be for
And
travel and
for
for
travel
legal
and for the other
services
things.
and-
I personally am worried about when we sign agreements for people to travel on our nickel. I just have a problem with that if they've got a blank check. So I'm glad to hear this idea of maybe of some kind of a cap, and we can always change the cap if I correct, can we not? We can increase that limit later, but at least we've got a starting point and we know about where we are. But I think an additional 17,000 above what they're already asking for and kind of what I'm going to call a hard cost to us, I think that other 17 is a pretty good number personally.
I would think so. I don't know, David, and it doesn't outline it in the contract, but typically in my line of work, travel, is separate like it is here, but that has to be approved before so is that kind of the same way with these
Yeah.
guys? They would have
Yep.
their travel costs approved, then we would then they would go ahead and, so I think that helps us keep it in check.
They gave an estimate that was less than that 17, so, yeah, they're estimating approximately 5.
Okay.
And the other one is not expecting travel costs, it's just the one group, correct?
On the item A, there may be some if we require them to come to a specific meeting or to stay overnight to address issues,
But I don't-
like this mic.
I don't, I don't see anything under A related to travel costs. I see it under C, but I don't see it under A.
It's on page 1 of the agreement. It's under paragraph 1. On page 1, paragraph 1, it says that any travel-related expenses will be billed separately at cost. So
Yeah.
both of them are having travel separate.
Why is that not on the back, on this final page also then? Do you see what I'm saying? We're not treating our children the same.
Perhaps it was because one would require flights and the other one we thought would be
Bigger dollars
minimal
maybe or
enough
something,
that,
yeah.
you
Who
know,
knows?
travel per diem would be enough. I don't know. I guess we could certainly incorporate that on the back if we needed to.
I just like everything out in the open where everybody can readily access it and not have to read all
Yeah,
50
I mean,
pages of the contract. Yeah, yeah.
I think we're still covered
We're
in the
still
agreement.
okay, I understand,
but-
yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
Mayor, I would amend my motion to put a hard cap at $100,000.
Okay.
Anything beyond that would require council approval.
All right. Can you accept that?
I accept that in a second.
There is one typo there and you just took it off.
You know, sometimes you can really
Right
disappoint a
there.
guy.
Under services, where'd it go? There it is. It came back. Under the services, the third line from the bottom, SE4, VICES. Just that one kind of stuck out. I think there's one more, but that's
how
one
we
I-
spell it on our texting, you know?
Not text deductions, so.
Young man, reading is important also. Understanding how to spell. There
How
you
to
go.
spell, you better believe it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? Hear none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
All right, young man, this is the most important action item of the entire night, what's coming up next, okay? Item number 3, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Have a motion by Councilmember Carroll. And
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Taylor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.